What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. So we're going to take a look and listen to Senator Manchin. He was interviewed this weekend, and it was pretty interesting just listening to this whole interview. Now, I will play, I don't know if I'm going to play the whole thing or if I'm going to break it up because it's very, very long. It's about 15 minutes, but he does give us some valuable information. Okay, so we kind of knew how he felt. He did his little op-ed. He talked about how he felt about the $3.5 trillion, but he's very, very clear here how he feels about the $3.5 trillion bill and what he would like to see. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. But first off, on this channel, we talk about news that matters. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell notification. Also, if you see my name and a picture of me in the comment section, make sure you also see a check mark next to my name. That check mark signifies that it's me. If you do not see that check mark, it's not me. It's someone trying to impersonate me. Okay, so I want to get right to this video because it is pretty lengthy. So here we go.
And West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin joins me now. Senator, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. So let's talk about the op-ed that you wrote. Yeah. You said you cannot support the $3.5 trillion bill until you get, quote, greater clarity on why that amount is necessary. Most of your colleagues have been trying to give you that clarity over the past couple of weeks since you wrote that. Your party leader, Chuck Schumer, says he's moving, quote, full speed ahead with this package. Will he have your vote?
And that's fine. He can. He will not have my vote on 3.5, and Chuck knows that. And we've talked about this.
So he's very clear there. 3.5 trillion, it's not going to work. He will not have Senator Manchin's vote if it's a $3.5 trillion bill.
We've already put out $5.4 trillion, and we've tried to help Americans in every way we possibly can. And a lot of the help that we put out there is still there, and it's going to run clear until next year.
Okay, so in the comment section, let me know, do you think that the government has tried to do everything they can to help the American people? Let me know in the comments.
2022. What's the urgency? What's the urgency that we have? It's not the same urgency that we have with the American Rescue Plan. We got that out the door quickly. That was about $2 billion, $2 trillion. And on top of that, you know, all the things we've had with the CARES package, everything leading up to that. So we have done an awful lot, and there's still an awful lot of people that need help. But you have 11 million jobs that aren't filled right now. 8 million people are still unemployed. Something's not matching up. Don't you think we ought to hit the pause and find out the vulnerability that we have, Dana, right now? We don't know what happened with us. It's awful coming back.
Now, just because there are 11 million jobs available and there are 8 million people who are still unemployed, some of those people, that 8 million people that are unemployed, some of them aren't going back to work, or some of them are looking for different type of work, or they might be focused on a different trade or going to college and stuff like that. So some of these people are out of the job market. They're not going back to work. So just because you have 11 million jobs available and 8 million people who are still unemployed, that doesn't mean that those people are automatically going back to work.
Like the way it is with a vengeance. We don't know about inflation. We know it's running rampant right now. I can tell you in West Virginia, inflation's running rampant. And on top of that, the challenges we're going to have, geopolitical challenges. Shouldn't we be prepared?
So I want to ask you about a lot of that. But are you saying it's the price tag, it's the timeline, both?
It's the urgency. Do we have the urgency to do what they're wanting to do in such a quick period of time?
But can you be specific? Okay, let's talk about the dollar sign.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific number in mind?
Here's the number you should be getting to. First of all, I have agreed to get on to the reconciliation because that's the time for us to make financial adjustments and changes. I thought the 2017 tax code and tax law, the way it was changed, was very, very, very unfair, and it was weighted to the wealthy.
So what's the number?
And the bottom line is what the number would be what's going to be competitive in our tax code. I believe that the corporate rate should be at 25, not 21.
But what's the overall number for the budget bill?
I think that you're going to have to look at it and find out what you're able to do through a reasonable, responsible way.
So then how do you know that it's not 3.5?
It's going to be at 1, 1.5. We don't know where it's going to be.
So Dana Bash does a really good job of countering him every time he's trying, because he's not giving a number. He doesn't want to give that number. And she keeps going back at him like, what's the number? What's the number? And obviously he doesn't want to give that 1.5 or eventually he does get to that. He will say that, but she really has to keep pushing him in order for him to bring that out.
So you think ballpark 1.5?
It's not going to be at 3.5, I can assure you. But with that, whatever it is, once you have a competitive tax code that you can compete globally, and then you should look at what the need is. What's the urgency and the need that we have?
And again, I want to get to that, but just because this is the thing that people consume. Do you have a ceiling?
My ceiling is this: the need of the American people, and for us to basically take in consideration inflation. No one's concerned about the debt. You know, our debt as of Friday was $28.7.5 trillion. And we're not even talking about that. No one's talking.
So you just said 1.5. It sounds like 1.5
I'm just saying that basically, well, I've looked at numbers.
He will not get to the number. He will not get to it.
If we have a competitive tax code from a non-competitive, it doesn't help the working person that was done in 2017. That's in the 1.5 range, okay? If that's where it is, shouldn't you be looking at what does it take now to meet the urgent needs that we haven't already met?
Okay, so let's talk about how this would be paid for. The White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, told me on this show last week that you are, quote, very persuadable on this budget bill because he says it will be paid for. It won't add to the debt. It won't add to inflation.
Well, if you're paying for it with inflated numbers from the standpoint, is the tax code, the numbers that they're wanting to pay for it, and the tax changes they want to make, is that competitive? Does it keep us competitive or not? I believe there's some changes made that does not keep us competitive.
Meaning don't increase taxes on corporations?
No, I want to increase taxes on corporations. I've spoken to corporations. I want the wealthy to pay their fair share. But if you're up higher to the point to where you are that can be competitive globally, then it's going to be counterproductive. Everyone's looking at this in a whole complete different way than I think maybe I am or other people are just keeping quiet. The bottom line is, do we have the urgency to spend another $3.5 trillion right now? The most urgent thing that we have to do is get the bipartisan infrastructure bill that's gone left unattended for over 30 years, deferred maintenance throughout every part of our nation. That's the one. The president went out and campaigned on that. That's his bill. We worked it in a bipartisan way, got 19 Republicans to vote for it. That's the bill that should go out immediately.
Okay. You have another side of this negotiation and some of your fellow Democrats, which I want to get to in a second, but let's just stay on what they call here in Washington the pay-fors, how your fellow Democrats want to pay for this. They're looking at increasing the corporate tax rate, closing existing loopholes, raising taxes on wealthy Americans, trying to get money back from, get the IRS to get money back.
I agree with all of that. I agree with
and they say they can add that up to 3.5 and there will be not a dollar. This is what they're saying.
I understand, but we just
added to the debt.
Just disagree.
You just don't believe them?
No, I don't believe them. I'm just saying that those rates are not going to be competitive to find out the money. Here's the difference. They're looking for 3.5 trillion. I'm looking for a competitive tax rate. Okay? I want to make the adjustments and changes. They're looking for basically.
What does competitive tax rate mean? Can you
globally competitive? Then you have to be globally competitive.
Right, but
you can't be.
But can you explain?
First of all, you can't be at 39% as far as capital gains. I said 28 all in. Okay, you can't be at 28 or 30 or more with corporate net. I've said 25 all in, and I think that every corporation should pay a minimum of 15%. They should all pay something. I believe in that. But the bottom line is, the need that we have, you understand they put no restrictions whatsoever or qualifications on any of this as means testing of the need of the people, the means testing. How many people have you had talk to you that said, they're sending me checks, I don't know why? We've all heard that.
Okay, so that's one of the things that I don't like that politicians say, and then people say in general, well, there are some people that are getting checks that they shouldn't be getting them, so we should just scrap the whole program and not let anyone get checks. I mean, yes, there are going to be mistakes made. Obviously, we know that. But that doesn't give you a reason to say, well, the program is bad because it's giving out some checks to people who shouldn't get them. What is that? It could be maybe 1% of the people out of 100%. You have 1% of the people who are getting checks that shouldn't get them. So we're gonna scrap the whole program, or we're gonna pause that whole program and not allow all these other people to receive their checks because this 1% of people who shouldn't have got checks receive checks. It's ridiculous. That
you want to get the infrastructure bill that you helped to negotiate, a bipartisan infrastructure bill. It passed the Senate. You want to get it.
And the White House was very much
involved. And the White House
every day.
But as you well know, dozens of House progressives are saying no, they're not going to vote for your infrastructure deal until you support what we're talking about here, the overall budget bill, which has a lot of the president's agenda, a lot of Democrats' agenda in it. By digging in your heels on this, aren't you dooming your own infrastructure bill?
Who's digging in the heels here? From the first off, the infrastructure bill has been passed, okay? You have a bipartisan bill with 19 Republicans. Who thought that could happen? Who thought that? And, you know, we worked hard on that for many, many months, and the president's team was very much involved. And the president went out and sold this around the country. Why would you basically let the perfect be the enemy of the good? You have a bill right now. I'm not saying we're not going to get to a reconciliation bill whenever.
I guess they have leverage,
go home and tell.
just like you have leverage. They're using their leverage. The House progressed like you are.
That's fine. And if they can go home and tell people that, hey, I don't care about the roads and bridges, you don't need it. I don't care about internet service, you don't need that. I don't care about fixing water and sewer lines. I don't care about the hard infrastructure that's deferred for the last 30 years. I don't care about any of that. I can't go home and say that in West Virginia. We need all of that. We have.
But can he go home and say that West Virginians, you don't need the human infrastructure? So the argument that he's making, it can go both ways, because there's a lot in that human infrastructure bill that will help the American people. So the question is, can you go home and say that to West Virginia? We're not going to give you any of these different programs that are in this human infrastructure.
The worst bridges in the country.
Do you take this threat seriously by the progressives?
They'll have to do what they have to do. I mean, I'm not involved with the House and the House rules or any of that. Okay, they're going to do what they think is best. And if they play politics with the needs of America, I can tell you, America will recoil.
And they say you're playing politics.
I don't think so. But the bottom line is, if it's such
He's playing politics.
Good politics and they think $3.5 trillion, why are they rushing it now? Why don't they use that for a political?
All right, let's talk about what's in
campaign trail and say, elect for me, and we'll spend $3.5
Let's talk about some of the specifics, because I want to get to the substance of what we're talking about here, because I don't think that gets enough attention. What President Biden and the Democrats say is the child tax credit, which has been expanded, make it permanent. They're saying it's already having a major impact on poverty and hunger for children. Do you support making it permanent?
Well, I support child tax credits. I sure am trying to help the children.
But the expansion
Let's talk about this before you start saying, is it going to be permanent, this and that?
Yeah.
Let's see how we're doing. Let's make sure that we're getting it to the right people. Let's make sure the people on poverty. I can tell you, people that are working and working poor, making every effort they can to get ahead in life, that's in that 50,000 and below. I've got people that making combined 200 and 300 and more up to 400 saying they're getting checks. You know, if we have X amount
But
of
it's on
dollars,
a sliding scale. They shouldn't be doing that.
Well, it's happening, though. This is happening because of the sliding scale.
Now, if he knows anything about the child tax credit, this child tax credit is added to the child tax credit that President Trump passed. So the child tax credit that President Trump passed, it went up to $400,000, and that was a $2,000 child tax credit. Now, what we're talking about now is the addition. So the addition, that's the new scale from 75,000 to 150,000 if you're a couple. So that's, yes, if you are receiving, if you're a family and you make 400,000, you still qualify for that $2,000 child tax credit, and you would have qualified for that years back, ever since 2017. So here he's not being clear on how he's explaining this. There were two child tax credits, and the second one was just an addition to the one that was already in place. The only difference now is that you're receiving these monthly checks. Before, you weren't receiving monthly checks. You had to file at the end of the year. You file your taxes, and then you get that child tax credit in one lump sum. It's no longer one lump sum, or at least you have an option to get monthly or do the one lump sum. And he knows this, but he's playing politics here. He's trying to make his argument stronger by saying this.
It's 75 and 150 with a sliding fee up to 400. Okay? These are things that there's hard caps to be put. The need-based, we're not having anything about need-based. We're not doing any type of that. And first of all, child tax credits. Think about this. If it's child tax credit, you want to help the children and the parents that are basically providing for those children. There's no work requirements whatsoever. There's no education requirements whatsoever for better skill sets. Don't you think if we're going to help the children, that the people should make some effort?
So let's talk about universal pre-K.
And then my question would be, if he's talking about this, you know, if you don't have to work, why did you vote for it back in March? You didn't have to vote for it back in March, but you voted for it. So this whole argument, yes, they're talking about extending it. This whole argument now doesn't really hold water, because he voted for the child tax credit back then, but now when they're talking about extending it, he doesn't want to vote for it anymore. And the money, yes, the money will go to the children, or should be going to the children. That's the whole plan there. And I think they will have to address that whole situation where if you're not working and you can still receive the child tax credit, that might be something that they're going to have to discuss and negotiate. But that shouldn't mean that the whole program, or you don't extend it at all because you have people who are not working receiving the child tax credit. You just work on that part and then you extend it to everyone else.
West Virginia, your home state.
I've been all for that. I'm all in.
You want to make it a federal program.
It's fine to be federal, but the states can do it too, and the states have a
But
responsibility.
should universal pre-K be in a bill like this that you would support?
I don't have a problem, because I support universal pre-K.
Okay, what about increasing funding for home care services for the sick and elderly?
We have $60 billion hadn't gone out the door yet. The only thing I'm saying is, why urgency to spend another $300 billion towards that when you got $60 billion that hasn't gone out? Don't you think we ought to find out what happened? Why are we not able to get into that type of a chain to where we're able to make sure that the administration is able to disperse the money and get it to where it needs to be helped?
Clean energy.
But see, and this is another problem that I have when you're talking about, okay, well, where's the money? You need to find that out. You can't just say, well, this is the reason why I don't want there to be more funding, because we already have $60 billion that hasn't been spent. You, as the leader, need to find out, why hasn't that money been spent? I want to support this, but we need to spend this money. We need to get this money out. What's the problem? What's the holdup? So another weak argument there for not wanting to move forward with this $3.5 trillion bill.
Energy provisions that are in this bill, they would use tax incentives and carbon capture technology to try to cut emissions in half and make the electric grid 80% clean energy by 2030. Do you support that?
Let me tell you this. Let's look at where we've come in the last 20 years. In 2000, year 2000, 52% of our electricity came from coal. Only about 16% came from natural gas, and only about 9.5% came from renewables. 20 years to date. Okay, 2020, 19% from coal, 40% from natural gas, and up to 20% for renewables. The transition is happening. Now they're wanting to pay companies to do what they're already doing. It makes no sense to me at all for us to take billions of dollars and pay utilities for what they're going to do as the market transitions. We've proven that, and we will continue to transition. They're accelerating something that could be very, very vulnerable to the reliability.
So it sounds like a no. You don't support the provisions.
Makes no sense at all.
Okay.
He can't just say no and then give the explanation. He has to go through this whole explanation and never say yes or no until he's called on it. And then still he doesn't say yes or no. He just says he doesn't support it. You've
heard your fellow Democrat, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said this about you in a tweet. Manchin has weekly huddles with Exxon and is one of many senators who gives lobbyists their pen to write so-called bipartisan fossil fuels bills. It's people sick of this bipartisan corruption that masquerades as clear-eyed moderation. This is your fellow Democrat.
Well,
is it true that you have weekly meetings with Exxon and other lobbyists for fossil fuel?
No, they don't. Weekly meetings, I don't.
It's just false.
I keep my door open for everybody. It's totally false. And those type of superlatives, it's just awful. Continue to divide. I don't know the young lady that well. I really don't. I've met her one time, I think, between sets here, but that's it. So we have not had any conversations. She's just speculating and saying things because she wants to.
She's not the only one. I'm sure you've heard. There are a number of your fellow Democrats who say that you're opposed to this because you're.
It makes no sense at all. I just gave you the facts. I've said this. You're entitled to your own facts. I mean, your own opinions. You're just not.
He was right the first time. You're entitled to your own facts, and he's putting out the facts that he believes.
Entitled to create your own facts to support him, and that's exactly what they're doing. The facts I've given you is the transition's happening. Reliability. Look what happened in Texas. It was natural gas that basically shut down in Texas that caused all that horrible carnage to people.
You have said pause. What the Senate wants to do is get this worked out by this week so that the House can vote on it September 27th. Is that a timeline that you can support in any way?
There's no way we can get this done by the 27th if we do our job. There's so much differences that we have here, and there's so much apart from us where we are as far as I'm giving you different things. I've been talking. I'm working with people. I'm willing to talk to people. It makes no sense at all.
Okay, so they go to talk about voter rights. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it there because this has been a very long video. And I do want to talk about that last thing that he was saying there. There's no way that they're going to be able to get it done by September 27th. And this is pretty sad because we've seen Congress been on recess pretty much all of August and some of September. So you could have been getting this stuff done then, but you chose to go on recess. And you chose to stay on recess. And so now you're going to come back and they'll all be back. Congress will all be back on the 20th. I know the senators will come back for a few days this week, but the full Congress will come back next week on the 20th. So they've been wasting all this time pretty much, not negotiating. Now, I know there's been some committee hearings and things like that, but when it comes to as a whole, they have not come back together. And now you have Senator Manchin saying, oh, there's no way that we're going to get this done before September 27th. We have to discuss things. Well, you should have been discussing those things all this time. You shouldn't have been on recess because this is important for the American people, the first infrastructure bill as well as the second infrastructure bill. And so if you're really serious about helping the people, and if you're really serious about that first infrastructure bill, then you should also be equally serious about the second infrastructure bill. Because just like you want to prioritize that first infrastructure bill, guess what? You have progressive Democrats, they want to prioritize that second infrastructure bill. And if we can't get the negotiating to happen, if you can't agree on the first and second, nothing's going to happen. No one will get anything. And so that's what we're looking at right now. So I wanted to play this, and I wanted to play the majority of the clip because I wanted you to see kind of his reasoning. And I think his reasoning at this point is very, very weak. He's not giving any strong facts like he was talking about having the facts. The reality is he didn't have facts for stuff. He was just putting stuff out there. And he was just saying, well, because we haven't spent the $60 billion, I'm not going to support spending more money. Why haven't we spent the $60 billion? You don't have any facts. Why hasn't that money been spent? You need to find that out. And he's just using excuses not to move forward with the $3.5 trillion bill. Also, when you're talking about that top line number, when he's saying, well, yeah, the corporate tax rate, we can raise it to 25%. Okay, if you raise it to 25%, how much revenue can you get out of that 25%? That's what we need to know. And if that is closer to 2 trillion or closer to 3 trillion, then maybe you have enough. So he doesn't know the numbers. He's just saying where he would go. He's not giving that top line number. He doesn't want to talk about, is it going to be 1 trillion or 1.5 trillion? So as far as facts go, he was giving us no facts. He was just trying to find the little weak points and saying, well, yeah, we can't do it because of this or because of this little thing, or people are getting checks that shouldn't be getting checks. So we're going to go ahead and I'm not going to support spending more money because you have 1% of the people getting checks when they shouldn't be getting checks. I mean, it's really a weak argument. I just wanted to show you that clip. Now, I will be showing a clip of Senator Bernie Sanders. He was also on the show over the weekend, and so he's going to talk a little bit about his opinion when it comes to the $3.5 trillion bill. Now, this week will be a very busy week because you are going to have some senators coming back. You have the committee hearings going on right now.